Good evening and welcome to the May 1, 2023 Township of Bedminster. This is our regularly scheduled Township Committee meeting. I'll recognize that we have a full complement of Bedminster Township Committee here in attendance at Town Hall. Ms. Ray, will you please have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, Mayor. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News Somerville, Burnsville News Whippany, and to all subscribers and posted at the Township Municipal Building on January 10th, 2023.
Great, thank you. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will have a presentation by Far Hills Bedminster Fire Department in just one moment. But before we do, we'll go through public comments. Now is the time of the meeting that we open up the microphone for public comment. If any member of the public wishes to make a comment, we have a hand raised. Come on up, sir. Name, give us your street. Don't need your street number, but need your name and your street.
Yes, I'm Michael Roden. I'm on Spencer Lane in Pluckerman, New Jersey.
Welcome, Mr. Roden.
I'm here in regards to the dog park. First of all, I would like to thank the Township Committee and the Mayor for the commitment of time that you do put in. I have a personal understanding of it's much more than preparing for a meeting and showing up to a meeting. About the dog park, last time I was here 2.5 months ago, I had questions basically about the trees and the seating. I'm here to follow up on the trees, whether there is any progress on that. I look at that and I do understand it's probably beyond the Department of Public Works scope to take those trees down where they are. I would like to know if there is any discussions on doing something with the trees. I have pictures right here if you would care to see them. There are currently 6 very dead trees. One tree, 7th tree.
Mr. Roden, if you took the opportunity to bring us pictures, we're going to take the opportunity to look at it. So I want you to start with Committeewoman Fernandez and she'll pass them down.
Pictures.
It's a share. It's yours.
Oh,
All right.
It's a share.
Thank you, sir.
And it's yours.
Thank you.
So, as I said,
those look like dead trees.
there's 6 dead trees. You know, the major concern is that we're going to get a good storm and we're going to lose fence. And when we lose fence, how long is the park going to be closed to repair that fence? If the committee could give me some idea whether there is some plan for the trees, I'd appreciate it. I would assume this is the best place to come for that.
Yes, this would be the best place to come for that. And our DPW director is not here, but
He's on the phone.
oh, he is on the phone.
Yes. Kevin
Kevin
Murray,
Murray, are you there?
Yes, good evening. Sorry, Mayor. I just got in. I missed the question.
Okay, so Mr. Roden is here and is asking questions about the dead trees at the River Road Dog Park. And it looks like these are dead ash trees. And this is not Mr. Roden's first time coming before us. And we told him that DPW was looking at those trees and developing a plan to take them down. And I didn't know that you had just called in. So not to put you on the spot, Kevin, but is there any thoughts about taking down the trees before they come down and hurt someone or hurt the fence or other structures down there?
Yes, Mayor. We completed the training for the boom lift for all the employees. Now we're just waiting for the budget to pass so we can rent that boom lift for the month like we spoke about to clear the dead trees in our open space areas. So once that passes.
So Mr. Roden, so you said this might be beyond DPW's skill set, but Kevin actually took DPW staff through a training session so that they could actually be able to work on tall trees safely. They just completed that session, and once we get through the budget, and then we have the funds in place to rent the boom, then Kevin and crew can work on taking those trees down.
Then we're good to go. Okay, I appreciate that very much. The other item was that there was talk about seeding the dog park. The grit went in, the grit was very dirty in the beginning, it cleaned up with rain and stuff like that. It seems to be working. I don't know whether anybody here is aware or not, but there are some issues with the grit in the sense that one dog in the park had 2.5 pounds of grit taken out of his stomach once. But, most of the dogs seem to get along with it. And in the sense that the grit has been put down, to seed that area would require a heck of a lot more work than just fencing it off and seeding it. So again, this is all budget considerations, and I do understand that money has to come from somewhere to do these things. Where are we at with seeding or not seeding the dog park on River Road?
I'm going to take a guess. Certainly defer to Kevin, but imagine you want to get through the tree removal first before you do the seeding. Beyond that, Kevin, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, Mayor. We added dog park upgrades into our open space budget this year, which would include the maintenance gate along with the fence, another corral to enter in at the River Road Park, as well as topsoil and reseeding. And same with the Burnt Mills Dog Park, we would be putting a fence up with a maintenance gate so we can add drainage, topsoil, and reseeding in that area, since that actually has a lot more pooling water than River Road Park.
And we certainly don't want River Road Dog Park to end up looking like Pluckman or Burnt Mills, which requires much more grading work than we want to see done over here.
No, and I appreciate the fact that, it is Green Acres funds that develop the park, and it's open to everybody. It's not just Bedminster residents. It's not just used by Bedminster residents. There's a wide range of people that use the park. And I want it to be the premier dog park in the area, personally. I really do. I look at it and I appreciate that, Kevin is on top of it. Thank you, Kevin. I question the need for seeding at this point with the grit down. I have no real issues that we're not seeding at this point, and there's no current on the book plans to reseed, but there is budgeted items to bring in soil and to deal with drainage issues and stuff like that, because at both parks, the drainage is a traumatic issue that causes the mud to pile up and stuff like that the grit has taken care of. In response to, maintaining the park, minor things, can we as, friends of the dog park do anything there to help keep it clean? I look at the gate. Here's another set of pictures.
Another set of pictures.
I look at the gate and, I don't know whether the town is set up for, sending out a power washer or anything like that, but, just the metal things there. Hit it with a power washer, make it look clean, make it look new. I would really like to keep on top of this. I would be willing to do these things, but, I know there's issues with, doing things like that. So, and the whole thing's about available funds. And, I bring that out just, as I'd like to see it. I really enjoy the park. I've only been using the park for the past year and a half. I've known about the park since it was built. I've known about River Road since it was authorized in 1994 to be developed, and a lot of history there. I really enjoy it, and I think it's a benefit to the town, just as the farmers farmer's market is, to bring people here that this is Bedminster. You know, you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to start shopping in Bedminster and all those things that we're looking for. Which brings me to, you know, where can we get additional funds to do more things with the dog park, to make it bigger, to make a secondary section where we can close off a section for half a year, where we could actually close off a section and put down fertilizer and weed kill. Park is fertilized and weed killed every spring, maybe twice a year, I don't really know, but it was just recently done. But it's not done in the dog park, and there's a reason for it, because there's dogs. But if you could close it off, you had another park, a bigger section. I'm asking the Township Committee to consider what more they can do for the dog park, either at River Road or, you know, close up the one that's on Burt Mills Road, take one of the fallow ballparks and make a new field up there. You know, I understand that the River Road ballpark was built around the trees, which is fantastic. We still have a couple trees that are providing shade. If we were to make a equivalent size, and the size is very important for my dog. My dog is a Bernedoodle. He likes to run. And that's why we go to River Road and not to Burnt Mills. It has to do with the size. And whether we can get the town interested in being more involved in making this a premier dog park, either or.
Mr. Roden, for sure, Kevin actually has plans, and we've talked, and certainly Committeeman Stevenson may actually talk to this better, more eloquently than I, but there have been discussions about having another section of the park, so we could give one section a rest, put another section into use. And I know you've been in discussions with Kevin about this, so now I'm going to turn it over to Committeeman Stevens.
I don't really have too much to add, other than the concept of having one shut down, to give rest. It was contemplated that it would actually be an internal fence to the existing acreage. So it wouldn't be something in addition. It would actually be cutting the existing one in half, or in some sort of percentage, so that we can get relief, which is sort of opposite of what you're asking for. I think that when we had looked at the placement there of the park, there were some setbacks, and we tried to go as large as we could at the time. But there were some other plans. I don't know, we had a pavilion that was supposed to be, there was a whole master plan for that area.
Okay.
And it's to be developed over time.
Okay.
If at all, but we couldn't really go much further because we were then getting into other things that were on the long-term plans. But we did try to build it with the idea of giving the dogs areas to run as much as possible. So that is in the plans, but I think it's sort of opposite of what you're sort of envisioning. Would be more restrictive than expansive.
So what are the possibilities of expanding a dog park in Burnt Mills Road in the fallow fields? Because they are fallow, they're not taking care of their growing grass in the inner field of the two ballparks that are up in Burnt Mills Road.
Kevin, I believe we were looking at drainage improvements at Burnt Mills, but not necessarily expansion of the dog park into any of the fields. And since now we're getting into some very specifics that we probably have not considered, what my recommendation is, Mr. Roden, for you to leave your contact information, and maybe you and Committeeman Stevenson and Kevin can have a discussion maybe later this week.
Okay.
Or a phone call. This way it gives Kevin the opportunity to consider some of your ideas, and maybe some of them take root.
Okay.
And Neil.
And Neil Mastrobuono, who is our rec director. So the field maintenance belongs to Kevin. The management of the fields themselves goes to Neil Mastrobuono, who is our recreation director.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming out, Mr. Roden. Thank you for the photos.
If you leave us your name and number, and
Yes.
your name, your number, we'll circulate and we'll reach out to you with the
Okay.
And thank you for taking the time to come down. And once
thank
again for the photos.
Much nicer meetings. Last time
Thank
was
you so much.
The power company there,
Yeah.
just a zoo.
If you want to ask Power questions, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions from the public? Is there any participants via Zoom or telephone who are not otherwise township employees? Seeing none, we will move on with the rest of the meeting. So there was an incident at a institution in Bedminster that we all know well. We got the email from Chief Bernardo at 4:40 in the morning. I was actually up relatively early, not at 4:40, but walking the dog. And the email from the chief indicated that there was a fire at Bedminster Florist on very early Saturday evening, shortly after midnight, well, actually Saturday morning. And I went by and it was gone. It was gone. We did trade some emails with President Ron Kennedy from Far Hills Bedminster Fire Department and with Chief Brienza. And Colin, you sent some photos from some other responding agencies, and it must have just taken off, melted the siding on the adjacent residence, and badly affected accents, or designed by accents next door. So for a presentation on the response by Far Hills Bedminster, we have Chief Brienza. Come up, Chief.
Mayor, council. So we had a fire at Bedminster Florist at 15 Tuttle Ave. We were dispatched at around 12:10 a.m. on Saturday morning. And then we cleared the scene around 4:30 in the morning. So we were out there for a little while. I want to start off our deepest sympathies to Lee, Doreen, and their family. You know, they're a staple in the community. Obviously, Bedminster Florist has supported fire department events as well as many other businesses in town. So it's sad to see what happened to their business. And then obviously also there was some impact to Accents by Design, but I do want to say luckily the majority of that first floor there was preserved for the most part. So after dispatch, we were dispatched at 10 after midnight. On the initial reports from Bedminster Police, they indicated the fire was well involved. I started a first alarm prior to my arrival. On my arrival, conditions were not favorable. The initial building had heavy fire throughout. Majority of it was through the roof and through the second story windows. Our top priority obviously is always life safety. So myself, Bedminster, and Far Hills police officers on scene were able to evacuate the surrounding residences, make sure that no one was in those buildings. We obviously did have multiple exposures, and being that the size of the fire was so large that there was a variety of different buildings in harm's way. On the arrival of my first two engine and ladder truck, we promptly set up operations. My first priority was protecting those exposed structures. So you obviously saw the structure on the right side was a residence. The siding was melting off of that pretty good. We got water on that. We're able to save that structure almost as a whole to just cosmetic damage. And then the Accents by Design building, on the arrival, there was fire in the second and third floor already because of the direction the wind was blowing. So we were able to get inside that building and preserve the first floor for the most part, but there was heavy damage on the second and third floors. As always, I commend the members of Far Hills Bedminster Fire Department and all of our surrounding mutual aid agencies for coming out and helping with the incident. It's no fun, especially when it's pouring rain and 45 degrees all night. Tends to be when we have these big incidents. So,
Chief, what were the other responding agencies, just so we can identify them? And I know Jake from the Burnsville News, they've already run one article, but certainly want to
sure. So
I want to be effusive about Far Hills Bedminster's reaction,
Sure.
both and the police departments as well, but also I do want to give recognition to the other agencies that responded.
Sure, absolutely. So we had Somerset County mutual aid coordinators, one of them being Tom Lynch, who lives in town, Bernardsville Fire Department, Peapack Gladstone Fire Department, Pottersville Fire Department, Martinsville Volunteer Fire Department, Green Knoll Fire Department, North Branch Volunteer Fire Department, Peapack Gladstone First Aid Squad, And then we also had a tender shuttle that was put in place by me because sometimes we do have water issues. So that was kind of a secondary source of water just to make sure that we were not going to have any other issues. So those tender shuttles were Pottersville sent a tender, Fairmount, Chester, Ralston, and New Vernon. And then Basking Ridge and Chester volunteer fire companies covered the town if there was any other calls during the time.
Wow.
So there was a lot of agencies out there.
Wow, that's just what, first off, I'm glad that no one from Far Hills Bedminster or from any other responding agencies, and no one got hurt, which is number one. No one got hurt either from the residents next door or from the building itself. It's as you said, it's a shame because Robin and I literally live a block and a half from there. We've all frequented Bedminster Flowers. It's been go-to for those last minute flowers that you might need. Mother's Day coming up, certainly I'm sure that they were stocked and ready to go. So it's a shame for them, but I just want to congratulate the fire department and you, Chief, for being right on the scene immediately and for just a job well done. So thank you very much, and I'll open it up to Township Committee.
I echo the mayor's comments. It was a swift reaction. Thank you for everybody who was out there. I mean, it's one thing to train, it's another thing you get out there and it's the real McCoy and it's blazing. So I know what you mean, and the conditions weren't optimal, but you guys rose up to the test and met it. So thank you, and thank all the responding agencies from the other towns.
You prevented a bad situation from becoming much, much worse. Thank you. Thank you for that rapid response. Chief, any issues, questions, concerns that we should be aware of, things that you want us to know or address?
No, we have nothing. We did have one fire hydrant that had a 5-inch service that we were unable to open. I'm working with the water company to see when that hydrant was last serviced. They're supposed to do it annually.
Right.
So we'll be working on that. But other than that, everything was fine. We had more than enough water flow to do what we needed to do.
Right. So great. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you, Chief, and thank you to everybody responding. You guys seem to work perfectly well together, and it's nice that we have all these neighbors that are right down the street and willing to help all our neighbors here. Thank you.
I saw the video of the fire blazing on the Facebook page, and I was just like, it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to actually see the flames going up like that. So I just want to commend all of our volunteer firefighters, and the mutual aid is just amazing, the surrounding towns and just all the first responders for all they do. It was a real crisis situation, and it's such a loss for Bedminster, but I mean, the bright side is to see our amazing volunteers. So thank you all for that.
And we do have Vinnie Tamburo from our construction office, who actually is director of the construction office. And Vinnie, you were out there that morning, right? Evaluating the residents and the ability to occupy that structure. Is that correct?
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor, that is correct. I received a call from our DPW Director, Kevin Murray, at approximately 2:27 a.m. I got down there as soon as I could. The fire department had pretty much the situation in hand at that point. I walked with Fireman Miller after being briefed by the chief and a couple of the other gentlemen there, the firemen. We went to number 25 Tuttle first because that was the building that was the least damaged. And he had explained to me that the fire department put a lot of water on the side of that house to keep it from becoming another casualty. They did several thermal imaging camera tests that determined there were no hot spots. So at that point, I thought it was prudent to allow the family back in their home. And then we went to number 325 Main Street, which was the building that was on the other side of the florist, which at that point was pretty much burnt almost to the ground, as you all know. And to echo what the chief said, the first floor was mostly water damage. The second floor, as we got toward the side of the building that had been involved in the fire, you could see that there was some damage in the ceiling as the wallboard came down. And then in the attic, it was clear that at that point, I had to decide that the building was unsafe. There were a lot of damaged structural members, and I wouldn't advise anybody to go up there. So the building had to be posted as unsafe.
Wow. And Vinny, thank you for that swift response. I know that in a lot of other towns, it might be a day or two before the construction official comes out to make that assessment. But the fact that you were out there just a few hours after the fire had started, and probably you guys were still, obviously still on the scene, for that family next door, getting back into that house was probably very important. It was a cold, rainy night, and probably stressful enough being displaced with fire next door, seeing the siding melt, and not knowing whether or not your structure is safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be traumatic. So thank you so much for getting out there, and we're glad that the swift response by the fire department enabled the family to get back in, and as Colin, as you said, preventing a bad situation from getting much worse. So thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Chief. Once again, open up to any questions or comments before we let these guys go. And thanks once again. Thanks for coming out tonight. Of course. I know showing up at these meetings is not something that you want to do, but when you guys have a response like that, especially in something that we all consider a landmark of Bedminster, those properties at the corner of Tuttle and Main Street, that we want to make sure that recognition is given when it's appropriate, and it always is appropriate. So thanks for coming out.
I have a question.
I agree. What was what do we do with the displaced folks? I mean, if they're displaced in the middle of the night, there's no establishment that's open, what do we do with them?
So luckily the main building obviously was a commercial building, so not a residence, so we didn't have to find any housing for those individuals. And the tenant that was on the second floor of Accents by Design had another place to go. She was actually not staying there during the fire, so.
Okay, great.
Question? I know we just finished our budget session, but did this fire highlight anything that you guys need to fight future fires of that size?
No, we're pretty well equipped to fight fires of that size. Obviously, our aging tanker and our ladder truck, that will be coming up in a few years. Those are two very key items when we're fighting a fire of that size, coming both for water supply and the angle, from accessing things up high.
Yep.
The key aspect of putting out the building closer to 202, where Accents by Design is getting up to that roof and cutting ventilation holes. So those are key pieces that we just need to continue to maintain.
Okay.
And that's part of the training that you do whenever a building is being demolished in town, offer it up. There's another coordination between the construction office and Vinny's permitting for demo. They let the fire departments know that, hey, there's a building coming down if you're looking for training, and being able to cut up those vent holes is something that these guys practice on, and we've seen them practice before. And so it may not necessarily always be a budget issue, but it may just be involvement with the community, knowing what's going on, and giving these guys first opportunities.
So I wanted to talk about the Accent by Design salvage. It's a tremendous salvage.
Ron, you want to come up? Or does he just?
He's my handler.
Chief, where do you want him? Do you want him removed?
The Accents by Design salvage, obviously that store has a lot of very high-end furniture items. Being that there was so much water coming down in there, we did spend probably an hour and a half covering furniture, moving furniture, things like that, just to make sure that, it wasn't too destroyed. There are multiple items in there, north of 6 figures. So we did our best to make sure that they were preserved to the best that they could be. And I know that the next day we were there helping, remove items that she needed. She's working with her insurance company very closely. So Rob and I actually spoke today about getting her a fire report so that she can start filing that. And then the only other thing to note is we were out there the next day for another 4 or 5 hours working with the prosecutor's office. They were doing a full arson investigation. Obviously, given the size of the fire and how quickly the building burned down, it was warranted. So
Any insight in terms of the cause yet?
they have not made a determination yet, no.
Will they make a determination, or will they simply make a decision, arson or not? If it's not arson, then
It does depend. When we had last been there and when I last spoke to them, they had not made a determination yet.
Okay.
Sometimes it comes up unfounded, but it does depend on the incident, so.
understood. Okay. Once again, great job, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you,
Thank you to all
Council.
the-
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
to all
much.
the volunteers. And Chief, if you can just get a list of all the responding agencies for mutual aid to Robin. Send a thank you note to all those agencies.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Thank you, Vinny.
Right.
Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you, Vinny. Moving on with the rest of the meeting, we have approval of one set of minutes. That's the April 17, 2023 Township Committee meeting. Questions or comments regarding those minutes? Seeing none, take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We have 3 permits and raffles tonight. First is Social Affair Permit to Benefit Center for Contemporary Art on October 12, 2023, from 6:30 PM to 10 PM at the Center for Contemporary Art, 2020 Burnt Mills Road, Bedminster. Next is a Social Affair Permit to Benefit New Jersey Turfgrass Foundation on May 11, 2023, from 11 AM to 6:06 PM at Fiddler's Elbow. Robin, maybe there's something in there about the 11:11 and 6:06, maybe some superstition, I don't know. That's at Fiddler's Elbow. Off-premise 50/50 raffle to benefit Pottersville Volunteer Fire Company on December 16, 2023 at 9 PM at the Pottersville Volunteer Fire Company at the Barney Road. Questions or comments regarding the permits raffles? Take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Proceed to monthly report discussion by subcommittee chairs. Committeeman Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. On DPW, folks are doing spring cleanup. Get your sticks and, I don't know, branches to the brush, thank you, to the street, because they're chipping. The chipping's starting, so we're doing that. They're continuing to work on catch basins throughout the township.
Kevin, how long are you running the brush pickup or the chipping?
I'll be running it through the end of the month, Mayor.
Okay.
Get out there this week, get branches. Generator project is still going forward. Mowing, weeding, obviously, preparing the fields for the teams is taking up a lot of time, obviously, but that's important. Kevin's going to be meeting with our EMS folks tomorrow to go through some of their needs, so we'll report back on that. And you guys have probably seen the fence has been extended along 206. Looks very nice. Kevin, good job.
Great job.
And he's doing some prep for some auctioning off some equipment. So a lot of stuff going on in DPW right now. Quite busy. The Historic Preservation had a meeting. Nothing crazy to report. One application went through, and then had spring fling this past week. It was a great event. I'm sure others will report on it, but the school they put on a great show and it was very successful. So that's all I've got.
Great, thank you. Committeeman Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, all. Board of Health, just a final reminder, the Board of Health is sponsoring an evening of CPR and AED training next Tuesday, May 9th, right here, 5:30 to 9:30 PM. Cost is $50 a person. The end of registration was today, but I'm sure if you're nice and you call up tomorrow, they will accept your registration. So we hope to see everybody there. Community Development Block Grant Committee, this week Committeewoman Fernandez and I will be reviewing public service and public infrastructure proposals to help the county determine funding, priorities, and allocations. Mayor, that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Committeewoman Mareski.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. A couple things happened at JVH, one happening. The JVH did their school group day, the spring version, on April 26th. It was led by trustee Paula Podgorski, followed by our trustees Ray Sanderson, Yolanda Sillo, and Lisa Stryker. Everybody participated either as a docent or demonstrations such as spinning wheels. I was not able to go, but everybody that went said they had a great time and that they're looking forward to the fall version. And just to let you know, it was attended by the American Christian School and Somerville Public School. So if anybody knows anybody at our Bedminster Township School and wants to get them in there, they have another opportunity this year to do so. Coming up on May 5th, the J.M. Stringer Gallery opening night will be held from 6 to 8 p.m. at JVH. And again, that's the John Philip Osborne Art Show. We have that pretty much every year. This year's title is Pivotal Moments in the American Revolution. If anybody hasn't seen John Osborne's stuff, it's really pretty great. He comes to JVH every year and does 2 weekends of showing his work, and he will also be doing a demonstration on one of the upcoming weekends. Environmental Commission, we haven't had a meeting, but we did have the annual tree giveaway. And that was run by Whit Parker and John Coates this Saturday on April 22nd. We started at 7:30. Whit set up a table and plastic for the trees and tape to mark the trees off and organize those. And with Whit and John handing out the trees to all our neighbors, they had about 600 individual trees, and I think it was before 2 o'clock, all the trees were gone. So
Wow.
Thank you for everybody who came and grabbed a couple of trees, make the neighborhood look nice. And I heard that Whit's gonna try and get some more trees for this fall. And so perhaps at a farmer's market, he'll bring those.
Right.
And although this isn't one of my committees, it is one of my passions. I'm going to choke up again. The Center of Contemporary Art had a little program this past Sunday for about an hour and a half, but it's an art throwdown they have done on previous years. It's really pretty cute. They set up teams of artisans all through the building. And if you haven't seen that building, you got to see it. It's an old school, I believe, and it's in pretty good shape. It's really fun to go in. And so you would walk around and watch the artisans do their thing. And at the end, they had a raffle, and so you could win one of the pieces of art that either the artisans did or they had some other pieces that were there. And it was attended, I'm going to say, by about 70 people. It was a lot of fun. On a crappy rainy day, it was a nice place to go, and everybody seemed to have a real good time. So looking forward to their event in the fall. We just did their raffle.
That's right.
And I think they're going to have something else in the summer as well. So they're cranking along there too. And that's all I have.
That's great. Committeewoman Fernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. As Colin mentioned, we had the CDBG proposals that we'll be looking over. Camp registration for the rec department is ongoing through June. It's looking pretty good. And Neil was telling me the farmer's market is set to open, but I'll let you talk about that. And this Thursday, I'll be attending the OEM county meeting, and I'll report back on that after next time.
Okay, great. So real quick, Land Use Board, we've got a Land Use Board meeting coming up this Thursday. Committeeman Hickey and I will be attending. Farmers Market, we have a Farmers Market meeting coming up next week.
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. So we'll have some updates for you then, but just a reminder, opening day is Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, so the Farmers Market will be back this year. Welcome it with open arms. Colin and I also attended a emergency management meeting. I don't think we talked about the last one, right?
No.
Right, so it was all hands and sort of a review of everyone's responsibilities during an emergency management situation. Think of Hurricane Ida last year. with the flooding and sort of a catastrophic situation, a little bit different than the one-offs you might associate with one single fire. But something like the fire that we had down at Village Green a couple of years ago, that would certainly qualify as one of those emergency situations. And knowing just where all our facilities are, how they're staffed, how they're operated, and also looking back at what worked during those events, and perhaps as just importantly, where there's room for improvement. So I'm in good hands with Chris Kroll from the fire department, who is our OEM coordinator. Did a great job at the meeting, and we'll be having a follow-up meeting with a little more detail and perhaps running some tabletop drills later on in the year. Not quite on land use board, and similar to this, not necessarily a subcommittee, but I know in one of the previous meetings I talked about scheduling a meeting with the property owners, the commercial property owners in Pluckman. Committeeman Hickey, Robin, Ray, and I attended that meeting. That was last Thursday, and we had the owners from KRE, or a representative from KRE with the new project, to talk about that project, as well as the traffic improvements at the intersection of 202, 206, Burnt Mills and Washington, Valley Road. And then coming north, so on that side, we anchored with the KRE project. We also had Michael Scancarella, who owns the Somerset Hills Shopping Center, and that vacant lot where he was approved to build something that is going to look historic. I believe it was referenced as the Kenilworth Inn from a couple hundred years ago. And then coming further north, we had Mark Malillo, who owns two beautiful buildings right on the middle of the street. And then coming further north, we had Tala Taki, who's the general manager for the Pluckman Inn, and Ken Kaplan, and I forget who he brought with him from Quantum Wellness. Now, what's interesting, we were also supposed to have a rep from Courtyards, but he was in Florida and could not make the meeting. And also we were supposed to have the owner of those two, what are they, blue-gray buildings,
Right.
on the west side of the road. And the purpose of the meeting was really just to talk about, as I think we all know what we've been saying, that Pluckman, that corridor needs a kick in the, and you can fill whatever noun you want to put in there. And there was consensus that Pluckman does need some refreshing, right? The property owners who were at the meeting, and even the ones who were supposed to attend but couldn't make it, those are some pretty good property owners. Those buildings look good. They take care of it. The architecture is great, certainly consistent with the way you would expect a colonial village to look. They've been maintained well, and there is some pride over those structures by all those property owners. But there's still some issues that we're dealing with, and some of these predate their involvement with Pluckman. For example, you look at the mess of the wires cutting back and forth. You look at the signage issues. I know that's certainly something that we've tasked and asked DOT to take a look at. The excess signage or signage to the nth degree, where it's beyond legible, because you're being faced with conflicting signs that are not necessarily serving their purpose, because there's so many of them, and some of them are sometimes in conflict. The sidewalks, right? We have these skinny sidewalks that are not necessarily conducive to that pedestrian feel that you want your Main Street to have. And there was consensus that, a 4-foot sidewalk is barely enough for one person, certainly not for two. And so we got into discussions about things that we could do, widening the sidewalks, looking at the trees and vegetation, some of which actually.
Some of that needs to be cut back.
Some of it actually works into the sidewalk, right? So you have, I'm sure at some point, some Bedminster board said, you're gonna put trees and bushes in. Well, now those trees and bushes are in the way of actually activating Pluckman. So
There's some that block the driveways. You can't see getting out of the driveway onto the highway, so that's dangerous.
Exactly. So we talked about parking generally, to make a vibrant commercial area. Certainly one is promoting the pedestrian access. 60% of, or 65% of our residential population lives right there. But the connection between the hills and 202, 206 from a pedestrian access, not so great. Not so great. So discussions about how we can make those improvements. Also in attendance was Frank Banish, our town planner. And one of the takeaways is, looking at some funding alternatives, Main Street, New Jersey, some self-funding opportunities, whether it's a business improvement district or special improvement district. And we'll be reconvening hopefully later in May, and we'll have the reps from Courtyards there. We'll also have, we're trying to get a representative from Crossroads, the business complex off of Pluckman Way, also in attendance. And I believe that Ron Kennedy mentioned to me that there's a new owner of that, is it the former Weichert or Coldwell Banker, that realtor?
Yeah.
The white
Weichert's
building?
on the west, Coldwell's on the east.
Yeah.
The big
Yeah,
White
then it
House?
was Caldwell. Yeah, the big White House. That there's someone just bought that building and has ideas for it. So it may be good to bring them in between, so if you could get that anchored, you really do cover a fair amount of Pluckman. And if everyone is working together, perhaps we can get some stuff done there. And, as I said, Pluckman needs a little kick in the pants, and hopefully with getting some consensus from the property owners and some improvements. Doug, we talked about the ordinance that we enacted that led to those two vacant, abandoned buildings go down on 202, 206, and also the building behind the Exxon that also went down on Washington Valley, right? So they will be replaced with structures better than what was there before. And we also talked about, even the Primrose School going, and how that actually works well with the existing architecture. So it also works with the landscape and streetscape. It's a little odd, it's not on 202, 206, but you now have great views of Pluckman Presbyterian Church. And all in all, I was pleased with the meeting. Colin, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And Robin, yours.
I think it was exciting because everyone has a vested interest in improving Pluckman. The walkability, obviously, we spent a lot of time on. How do you attract folks to come in there to enjoy the amenities that are there? What kind of amenities are needed? Obviously, you hit on parking in terms of where is shared parking, where could it be envisioned? And I think just as you talked about, Mayor, and also bringing in Walter Lane, envisioning the art of the possible, of what's there, and maybe some graphic or visual renderings so you can start to tool around and figure out what might be doable there. We talked about lighting as an example, right? Improving the lighting there and maybe having something that signals that you've entered Pluckman Village as distinguished from,
Right, I believe the term I used is similar to the term I mentioned at Reorg, which is the brand, right? So when you hit Pluckman, to some extent, there should be a brand. And right now, with the hodgepodge of buildings and the landscaping to no landscaping to landscaping that's actually in the way, that perhaps there's another way of looking and providing some sort of identity to the Pluckman streetscape. And I was actually on the phone with Walter before we had the meeting, and I mentioned, and making sure that we would schedule around his availability for the following meeting as well.
That's
So
great.
we could, once again, work with county and, as we always do, and see if there were other opportunities there. Robin, and your thoughts?
Well, I said I was all about the retail. We have enough pizza places and nail salons in town. I'd like to see other retail establishments that make it, people actually want to go to, make it a destination location.
Right, and that was certainly echoed by the property owners. They also seem to think that restaurants, coffee shops, cafes, ice cream,
Gelato.
gelato, that will create, if you get enough there, you create you give a place that folks want to walk to and that people will drive to. And where is there opportunity for parking, shared parking between the businesses and the properties? And also looking at where there seems to be excess parking. And what was identified as excess parking is the King Shopping Center. So the corner by where between Pancheros and what used to be PNC, now
The bank
It's
and
still PNC.
Yes.
oh, it's still PNC back there?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm thinking that the
urgent
Medicare,
care.
the urgent care took over everything, but you're right, they did.
They're still there.
So in that whole area, you still have excess parking. Frankly, even when the Chinese restaurant was open, you always had excess parking there.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's a way that these property owners can work together in the future so that pedestrian access from one shopping area with parking helps out on the other end and vice versa. So we'll see. It was exciting. And as I mentioned before, I don't usually like to gauge a meeting where everyone agrees with me as successful. But anyway,
But-
when anyone agrees with me, then say, hey, what a great success. Anyway, so more to be determined. The recommendation, I think, from one of the owners was to have the next meeting there and walk the west side, come around, walk the east side, come back around, and get a feel for where there's opportunities. And I know one of the things that was discussed is looking at courtyards and that connection with Knox Park. Is there a connection? Could it be better?
Right.
There is one. There's a sidewalk that
Yeah.
directly connects.
Yeah.
Can it be better? Absolutely.
So that was one of the issues that was discussed. Right, and then from there, because you can actually connect up to your neighborhood.
Yes.
Right. So we'll see, more to be, hopefully we do get that meeting scheduled later in the month, and then we'll report on it probably in June. Crazy. Okay, Ms. Ray, Administrator's Report.
Yes, Mayor, on April, I should tell you, Committeeman Hickey, the AED CPR class, I think has 29 people registered.
All right.
Just so you know, it's been very popular the last couple of days.
Good to hear.
On April 26th, Caitlin Vettel and myself attended a presentation at the clerk's, Somerset County Clerk's Office for the new voting machines that we will be implementing at this primary election. They're all electronic, should be quite interesting, so we wanted to learn how to use them so that we can help. April 27th, we had Take Your Child to Work Day here at Bedminster Township. We had 14 children that attended, parents of Bedminster employees. We took them through a series of activities throughout the day. They went to every different department, and I think I gave you all a copy of we had a scavenger hunt and some crossword puzzles and some other activities for them. But all in all, every department participated. It was terrific. The eye candy with DPW and the police department and the fire department were terrific. So just want to thank all the employees for doing a fantastic job. May 2nd, which is tomorrow, we have a free COVID-19 vaccine clinic here from 3:30 to 6:30 in the afternoon. And also, the Somerset County is in desperate need of poll workers for this primary election. So we'll be doing another blast for that. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Does the chief, Chief Bernardo, do you have anything to add from the administrator's report to the police report?
No, sir.
Okay, excellent. Did Kevin have anything?
Kevin, do you have anything you want?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, all right. Moving on, ordinances. None to introduce and none for public hearing. We have 4 items on the consent agenda for resolutions. Any member of the Township Committee want to pull any of those resolutions off for individual consideration? Seeing none, take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Moraski?
Aye.
Ms. Fernandez?
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
We have no resolutions for individual consideration. We'll take a motion to approve the bill list pending review of individual invoices.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote again, please. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Moraski?
Aye.
Ms. Fernandez?
Aye.
And Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Old business. Ms. Ray, anything further from DOT?
No, nothing yet.
That's on Pluckman signage. Keep following up. Utilities, I do believe we have an update on some utilities. Committeeman Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. We do. Let's start with Altice. Work is underway in Cortland and is starting up now in Wynwood. You may also have seen digging at the bottom of Schley Mountain Road as Altice works to extend fiber into the neighborhoods in the Hills Village North area. Next up is Wood Duck Pond on May 15th. I did attend the Wood Duck Pond meeting last week. They had a board meeting to give them an overview of the process and what to expect next. The majority of the remaining associations who have not yet signed up are now in contract review, and several are nearing completion. So that's good news. We have progress, suffice to say. Which leads me to Verizon, which we normally don't mention up here, but as you may recall, they put a notice out a year or two ago that they were decommissioning the old copper wire plant here in Bedminster, which is how they deliver plain old telephone service, or POTS, as it's called. Yes, there are still people who use landlines, believe it or not. Verizon is required by BPU mandate to continue to provide landline service to those customers who want it. So in order to accomplish this, they are now running fiber. That will be used to deliver voice services and presumably TV and internet services under the Fios brand. So the bad news is, unlike our friends at Altice, Verizon has not shared their plan with anybody. On more than one occasion, I've received an angry phone call from a property manager representing one of the associations in the Hills. I've had to advise them, it's not the cable guys doing the digging, it's Verizon. The good news is that presuming Verizon restarts their Fios installs, which incidentally have been dormant in New Jersey for about a decade, the Hills would have the best of both worlds, basically a choice of fiber providers. So not only is service reliability and performance improved over fiber, but as you've seen in the wireless industry, you have multiple carriers, mean you have people competing for your business, which means better pricing for the end consumer. And I will tell you, as a former telecom guy, the carriers know down to the street address who provides what services where, and they price and they offer promotions accordingly. So a little bit of competition is always good for our residents, so I'm excited to see that happen. And Mayor, I know you're going to ask me this question. Yes, this is happening in the Hills, but what about the rest of Bedminster? Well, if they have to provide POT service everywhere, then they will have to pull fiber everywhere. I have no insight in terms of what the plans are, but this may be a solution for some of our neighbors, especially in Western Bedminster, who have been suffering with DSL service and slow connectivity for literally decades, because at some point, presumably, Verizon has to go out there and pull fiber to those locations as well.
So the difference between what Altice is doing is that Altice did not have the agreements with the homeowners association to bring the fiber in, so they need those agreements.
Correct.
Whereas since Verizon already provides telephone service, they can essentially piggyback on their telephone service property rights
Correct.
and use that to draw fiber through the same instruments.
Correct.
So what took what took Colin all that time to bring the parties together and eventually make those agreements, Verizon can just do because they're the telephone company.
Correct.
Do they have to worry about digging up people's properties and remediating?
Presumably, yes, they should be doing mark outs. So it'd be nice if they would let the property managers know, but I can tell you from my experience, they haven't let anybody know. They just show up one day and start digging. And then
Because they don't need to
They
negotiate
don't
the
have to.
agreements.
Right.
Since they're a telephone company, they can just do it.
So Colin's gonna get a lot of phone calls as they are digging through their properties, saying, please have them plant my stuff back.
That could happen.
That could happen, yeah. We'll see what happens. But regardless, look, having 2 fiber providers in the hills in particular, that's huge.
That will be fabulous.
Fabulous. You can
So
pick and choose.
You went from associations that had 0
Right,
and just DSL
right. And
to having
hybrid fiber
2
coax,
fiber options.
it's great. That's great. And by the way, wireless, 5G fixed broadband wireless, which is another option for people who just need basic internet service. It'll provide you probably 100 meg connectivity. It's not bad. So if you don't need all the bells and whistles of fiber, you can subscribe just like you subscribe today for your cell service. You can get a little box that you put in your window and it gives you internet connectivity. So, and it's offered at about $50 or $60 a month. Verizon is doing it, T-Mobile is doing it, I'm sure AT&T will get into it, so.
But to do it, they need the fiber in the first place.
Correct.
So you can't just do it hey, I'm gonna go 5G. There's no
Yes,
fiber near me for a mile. That's not gonna work.
yes,
It needs to be proximate to the fiber.
yes. Those nodes have to be installed probably every 500 to 750 feet, so they need to be fibered.
But if we have FiOS already, like my neighborhood, you can do those?
No,
Ah,
no. These are separate nodes that have to be installed. They're about 15-foot poles. And they will eventually have to install those in the hills, but they'd have to get permission from the property owners in the hills to do that.
okay.
Is that it?
That's all I have, Mayor. I mean,
Okay, and next, Pluckman Park Housing. Doug, I take it you have not heard anything further from Abe or the folks over at Pluckman Park?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, let's move on. We do not have an executive session tonight. We do have the opportunity, since we have both Vincent and Robin here, we could do the SDL review, or we can wrap up, it's 8:02, wrap up early and save it for another meeting.
Whatever you want to do.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Sure. Fine.
Save it for next, for 2 weeks.
Okay.
We do the SDL. Vinny, you good with that?
Yes, I am. I'm not the expert in SDL that some other folks might be, so.
Elliot might be available.
All right, so,
He is an expert at it because he was walking me through the side of it today, which is all the hard part, the stuff that he has to enter into it, so.
oh, did you hear that?
I know about 5 things with SDL, and I showed every one of them to Robin, and she thinks I'm an expert now.
Director Tenbury, you take those compliments and run with it.
We will think you're the expert as well.
Exactly. All right, so we'll put that off for 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
And let's go through Township Committee comments, and then we'll adjourn for the night. Committeeman, Robin?
I just wanted to bring to your attention before you leave, there's a letter from a student in your correspondence that I just thought you wanted to take a look at. It was adorable. The Bedminster, 9-year-old from Bedminster who attends a private school.
Which tab is it in?
Catholic school in Somerville.
Correspondence.
Oh,
It's under
oh,
correspondence,
yep,
right on
yep.
top.
Oh, my.
First, let me see.
Oh,
Okay, you want me to read it?
Sure.
Sure,
That would be
put it, okay, so it's addressed to Mayor Jacobs.
Mr. Mayor
Mr.
Jacobs.
And then here it is, yeah. Dear Mr. Mayor Jacobs, hi, my name is Amalia. I am 9 years old. I am in Immaculate Conception School. Thank you, Mayor, for this pretty town. Everybody is so nice and kind everywhere. This town makes me full of joy. Something that bothers me are the bad roads because there are many holes on the streets. Another thing that bothers me is the littering. We need more trash cans in this area. One more thing that bothers me is the very few areas of recreation for older kids. Can you put a soccer or basketball court? And what is your favorite thing to do as a mayor? And yours kindly, Amalia F. So,
that's a good question.
good question.
That is a good question.
Do we get an answer?
Yeah.
What is your
yeah.
favorite thing to do as mayor?
Adjourning meetings?
How about reading wonderful letters from?
Yes, oh, that's a much better answer.
Better answer.
So thank you, Amalia F., for the letter. And
We have
since
soccer
the
fields.
questions regarding the recreation services, we can direct to Committeewoman Fernandez.
Yes, we have a basketball court and a soccer court, soccer field, and lots of rec programs.
So thank you, Robin. And now we'll go to Township Committee comments. Committeeman Stevenson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to just say shout out to the PTO for putting on a wonderful event. There's a lot of work that went into that, but it went off without a hitch, and it was a great event. A lot of money was made. Haven't seen the final tallies, but money was flowing, and number 47 didn't come up as much as it should have, but it came up.
So, did you win something?
They did. But, not as much as I would have liked. But that's what I have. But so good job to the PTO, and thanks for everybody for supporting the great cause.
Yeah, great turnout. It was great. Great night.
And our Bedminster Township Committee basket went to?
Yes, went to Ramsey.
Yeah.
Ramsey. Yeah.
That's right.
So at least,
That's right.
went somewhere where
Good.
we know the recipients. That's good.
Yeah. Good. And what a great basket. Dining, Bedminster dining.
Yeah.
Great idea.
That's what we do.
Committeeman Hickey.
I will just echo Committeeman Stevenson's comments. It was a great evening, and as I know many of you up here know from firsthand experience, Doug, Gina, Larry, there's a lot of planning because you guys have done it in the past, so it takes a lot of work.
And Robin.
And me.
That's right.
The basket's in my basement for years.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, that's right. Your living room gets taken over, or
That
whatever
whole
it is.
house.
So, yeah,
Yep.
kudos. It's such a big effort. So they do a great job. It takes months to plan. So thank you.
Committeewoman Moreski.
Well, I did not get to go this year, but when I've gone, it's a wonderful event. So, and I know how much work it is to put on something like that. So I appreciate that, that you guys do that for our schools. And then once again, I want to extend the invitation for the Stringer Gallery exhibition with the John Osborne art this Friday, the 5th, from 5 to 8. And I'd love to see all you guys there. And it'd be another opportunity to come see the model in the JVH house. And that's all I got.
Committeewoman Fernandez.
Yes, and it takes a village to run Spring Fling, and I know, because I ran it for years, and it takes months and months of planning organization, so I'm so proud of the PTO. They did a great job. And I did not attend, however, I did find 5 babysitters so that parents could attend. And Kayla being one of them, and last minute babysitters too, because, when somebody cancels on you, it's no good. And I just wanted to reiterate, how great of a volunteer fire department we have that responded to that crisis in such a quick manner and efficient manner, and they were able to assess the situation and get right to it. So we're really lucky to have them, and I'm very appreciative. And that's all.
That's
Have a good
great.
night.
So kudos to Chief Brienza, who is the first one on the scene. Just a great job by Har Hills Bedminster Fire Department. And again, another thank you to all the volunteers and all the responding agencies. So, I knew there were a lot, but when Chief Brienza was running through that
It's huge.
That
Yeah, it's
was
amazing.
a huge response, and it just shows that the coordination and cooperation that all the towns around us have, just tremendous. And similar PTO, what a great night. Well done by the PTO. Great to see the school in attendance. Always good to see Principal Swan, Superintendent Giordano, some of the teachers. Just a great night, and also once again an opportunity to catch up with a lot of folks we haven't seen in a while. So that was very nice. And that's all I have. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Chief
you.
Bernardo.